Good morning, Juror B35. That's your name for now, okay? We're here to ask questions about the survey that you filled out yesterday. Good morning, Juror B35. That's your name for now, okay?
Good morning. My name is Bernie Delariota, and as Judge Nelson indicated to you, we're going to be calling you B35, if that's all right. I've had an opportunity to read over your questionnaire, and I had some questions as a result of that. But what we're trying to find out at this time, it's very limited just to publicity in terms of what you've heard about the case or read about the case. So I'm going to delve into that if we could. You said you heard about this case from various media sources, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And you also said from friends and relatives.
Yes.
And then also local news and I guess Fox News too?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is the Fox News that you're referring to the national Fox News, like, you know?
Yes.
Okay. And then you also said the radio.
Yes.
Okay. So let me take those all one at a time. The local news that you would have focused on or heard about this news, do you recall what particular stations?
Usually West TV.
I'm sorry, West
WSH.
Okay. And then how about anything else in terms of local news? Newspaper at all, or?
No, I don't do newspapers. Just mostly West.
All right. And then the national news would have been the national Fox News?
Yes.
Okay. And any particular programs or just news? You know, they have...
I watch like the morning news they would have, and I watch Sean Hannity at night.
All right. No Bill O'Reilly at all? Or?
I watch some of that too.
Okay. Then you also mentioned friends, just like neighbors or people at work or just
right, just
friends?
Conversational stuff with friends and people at work.
Okay. And then family, immediate family or just
immediate and extended family.
All right. Let's and I gather from all these various sources that you obtained information, you have not formed an opinion one way or the other. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Tell me if you could, from the local news, as best you can, what you recall hearing about the case.
Basically, we're trying to say that that I guess Mr. Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin, sort of a racial thing, and that he was out of bounds by following him and tracked him down and things like that.
Okay.
To make it racial.
Right. And I apologize for not asking it this way, but that would have been at the very front end when you first heard about the case? Is that correct?
Yes.
And how did you feel about the news being portrayed it that way? What I'm trying to ask is distinguishing between, just fact news or opinions that sometimes is interjected right after the news. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yes, what I'm trying to portray as far as being racial.
Yes.
I didn't see it that way because I didn't know. I don't know, but I can read the man's mind and tell whether he decided he wanted to kill the guy because he's black or what. I just figured that maybe they met at the wrong point in time and things went wrong and they disagreed and something happened and I don't know what happened because I wasn't there, but I don't think it was racially motivated.
Okay. All right. Anything else about the first impressions from the local news that you obtained that we would be asking you about? Anything else you remember specifically about facts of the case?
No.
Okay. Then you mentioned national news. Let's talk about it. And is your information about this case in terms of nationally just limited to Fox News?
Pretty much.
Okay.
And I watch a little CNN too.
Okay. So let's talk about Fox News. You mentioned, would that have been from the morning or from Sean Hannity or both?
A little both.
Okay. The morning, what do you recall in the morning? And I gather you watched I can't remember her name. There's a woman and then there's two guys in the morning.
Yeah, I forget her name, the blonde hair lady.
Right. Okay. What do you recall hearing about the case in the morning news?
Almost the same thing. Said they were trying to not make it seem to be it was a racial type thing. It's trying to say that maybe the gentleman needs to have a fair shake before he wants to start making all his opinions and start assuming that a person was guilty because they think of that maybe it might have happened this way or that way when they weren't there.
Okay. And how did you feel about that?
Almost the same. Pretty much almost the same. I figured the man needed to have his day in court and see what happens and let the chips fall where they may. If he did viciously do what they say he did, that he deserves to be punished for it. If not, then we got to let him go.
Okay. And in other words, you believe in the concept of Fox News, fair and balanced, in other words.
Well, I just believe in a man is innocent until proven guilty.
Okay.
Well,
You
Fox
believe
News
in
says-
the Constitution in terms of
Absolutely.
presumption of innocence.
That's right.
Okay. Because you haven't heard any of the facts.
Right. I wasn't there and I didn't see the tussle go down.
Okay. All right. Now, you mentioned Sean Hannity. What do you recall? Because Sean Hannity, while he covers news, is more opinionated. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
it's real opinionated.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's
All
kind of
right.
out there.
He's on one side of it. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because I watch Sean Hannity too. What do you recall hearing about this case about Sean Hannity?
Well, I saw a lot of the folks there on television, and I think one of the things that sort of stuck in my mind was, I forget the lady's name, but she had this pink hat on with pink suit. She's one of our senators, I think, and she made a statement as if Trayvon was hunted down like a rabid dog and shot. I said, that's out of bounds. Because we don't know we weren't there. All we know is the tapes and what we heard. We don't know how that happens. And I really didn't like that.
Okay.
But that's the way, that sticks in my mind the most.
Okay. Anything else about Sean Hannity that you recall hearing about this case? I'm not allowed to, doing this proceeding or any proceeding really, to tell you what came out.
Yeah, they're talking about.
I'm trying to pro from your mind.
Yeah, they were
as
talking
best
about
I
the
can.
NBC tapes, how they voiced over or took off the part where I guess Mrs. Zimmerman was talking on the phone to the dispatch lady, and she said the part about, I think he's black. They make it seem like it was racial. And they said on the news that was edited out. And that stuck in my mind. And let me see what else. They were saying that a lot of the pictures of the young man that was killed that day were not up to his regular age, I guess. They were showing younger pictures to make it, I don't know, to make it seem as though he was younger than he was. I don't know what it looked like. I've never seen it, but those are the pictures I saw. But I don't really know if that was true or not. But those three things are what stuck out the most on that.
Any other pictures or any other interviews that Mr. Hannity conducted, if he did, that stand out in your mind that you recall about this case?
Those were the main ones, because I was kind of not wanting to be a racial thing, and when I saw the Reverend Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson get up there and march and do all this saber rattling, I wasn't with that, because I think we got more important things to worry about than this one case.
That's right. Did that alienate you against the Mr. Martin's in terms of him being the person that was killed in this case?
Not at all.
In other words, did that kind of put you in the Zimmerman camp because you felt that those commentators or whatever, or people were doing something in your mind that they shouldn't have been doing? Do you understand
No, what it did actually was kind of made me upset, because I guess they're trying to politicize it and make it into a racial issue when we don't know exactly what went down that day. I didn't like that, and I felt for the family and everything, because if I was in the family issue, I would probably went the same way. But I wasn't agreeing with the racial connotations, and they're trying to make it to be too flamboyant. I wasn't with all that.
All right. So, in other words, based on your feelings about that was inappropriate,
Absolutely.
you would not hold that against the state of Florida because we're prosecuting Mr. Zimmerman?
No, sir.
Okay, in any way whatsoever?
No, sir. I feel what you guys say is going to be the facts, and if that's where it was, that's where it would be.
Okay, all right. And I'm assuming the opposite would also be true in the sense of keeping an open mind as to Mr. Zimmerman's guilt or innocence. Too.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any dispute about that in your mind?
I don't know. I've listened to what they say on television. If Mr. Zimmerman, if he said what he said happened, then he has to be innocent. But if it's proven that he didn't, then he has to pay the price.
All right. Tell me, if you could, expand on that a little bit. When you say he said what he said happened, what are you referring to?
Well, as far as what they were saying, that he was saying on television about he was the one on the tape being screaming for his life, and that Trayvon went for his gun, so he got the gun first and went in, and then he shot Trayvon, and about how he followed him, but the dispatch, I guess, told him to leave to go back. He was on his way back, and then Trayvon came from behind, I guess, and said, hey, whatever, and he hit him, and the fight went down that way. Those things.
Okay. And do you recall hearing about that in terms of Mr. Zimmerman when you were talking about what he said? Do you recall that being from recordings that were played about what he said, or was that just commentating?
Commentate, people talking about
Do you
what he
remember
said.
what commentator was talking about that?
Bill, Sean.
Okay, Bill O'Reilly
Yeah.
and Sean Hannity. I know you're talking about it, just for the purpose of the record. Okay. Sometimes those first impressions are lasting impressions that you form an opinion at that time, other than you felt there was some inappropriate stuff done by Mr. Sharpton and Mr. Jackson. Did you form any other opinions about was Hannity being fair or not?
Not all the way. I didn't think so. I think he had his one side, and he was trying to get his opinion across, trying to keep it from being whatever he didn't want it to be. But it was mostly entertainment, just trying to get an idea of what was going on with
Right.
the case.
And do you understand my question is, because I've watch Sean Hannity in terms of in this case particularly, he's one side.
Yes.
Do you not agree with that?
I agree.
And did that sway you in any way or bias you against the state side?
No.
As a result of Mr. Hannity's...
No, sir. Because that was basically his opinion.
Okay, so you don't take him as an authority like,
No, sir.
man, I'm going to be on that jury, and Mr. Hannity said so, and
No.
that's the case.
No.
You can agree to set that aside.
That's right.
Okay, under the law, anything that you would have heard or seen on TV or read about, etc., the law requires you to take that outside the courtroom and only make a decision of actually what happens in the courtroom when all sides are present, the defense, the state, and the court, and obviously the jury. Can you agree to do that?
Yes, sir.
You also mentioned friends that you spoke the case about. Did they have opinions one way or the other?
Yeah, they all had one-sided opinions. I'll be the only
Okay.
one outside getting yelled in both ears for my opinion.
Okay. Were they pro Mr. Zimmerman or pro Mr. Martin's case, or
They were all pro Mr. Martin.
okay? Did that alienate you against them, or are you still friends with those people?
Oh, we're still good. We're still good. But I can get my opinion across to them because they all believe one thing.
Right.
I'm trying to tell them. Not
Sure.
to do
And did you take the opposite opinion when those friends of yours were talking in favor of Mr. Martin's case?
No, I would just say maybe we want to look at the other side before we make a judgment.
Okay. Did they kind of argue with you about
Always,
that?
every time. So I stopped talking about it with them.
Okay, all right. And you mentioned family.
Mm-hmm.
Did your family, in terms of what opinions, if any, did they express regarding the case?
It was basically the same thing.
Were they pro?
All pro Trevon.
Okay, all right. So, in terms of family and friends, were you the only one that felt the opposite, or?
As far as my experience so far, yes.
Okay, and I want to make sure I have a complete understanding and a fair understanding of what you're saying. Are you saying that you felt that Mr. Zimmerman, based on the facts that you heard on TV, was innocent or presumed innocent at that time, or what are your? In other words, they were expressing that Mr. Trayvon Martin was right. I'm assuming, right?
Absolutely.
And did you take the opposite extreme, or were you kind of in the middle?
Kind of in the middle because I'm not sure if he's guilty or innocent. I don't know. I haven't seen the facts. Only watched it on TV and that kind of thing and hear people talk, but I really don't know. And that was I was trying to tell people, hey, don't presume this man is guilty because you heard someone say he was, or you heard this happen. Let's find out, wait for the facts to come out, and if I'm not on this jury, if I'm not on the jury, I want to still feel the same way. When the facts come out, and that's the fact, and that's what it's going to be. Let's just follow they may.
Did you feel, in other words, it was important to keep an open mind?
Absolutely, especially in a case like this.
At some point, you found out you were going to be at least potentially, you were going to be on the jury. You didn't know if it was going to be this case, I'm assuming, right?
No, I didn't know.
Okay. When you first got that summons, did you talk to any of your friends and say, hey, listen, I might be on that jury?
No, I just talked to my wife. That was it.
Okay. Did she express an opinion about, like, oh yeah, now this is your opportunity?
No, it was surprising because I haven't been called for jury duty since I was 18 and back in college. And
gotcha.
she went 5 or 6 times since we've been married over 27
She
years.
has been?
Yeah.
Well, thank God for her service.
Yeah. And I told her the day they had a report, and she goes, well, that's the day they're going to be doing the George Zimmerman thing. I said, they already have that jury already. She goes, no, they're not doing it now. I said, okay.
Okay, so you had no understanding that you were going to be until, I guess,
Until yesterday.
Okay. You went home last night, and obviously you followed the judge's admonitions about
That's right.
not doing anything. Did anybody try to approach you at all, your wife in particular, and say,
To
oh?
say something false.
she knew. She knew.
No, even and believe me, President Obama knows.
Now, you also mentioned, I guess, in
And
your
that-
questionnaire, you talking about rallies. I guess did I read your writing? And I apologize. I write terrible too.
What was the question? I could probably.
I stated I might have heard that it may have been. Oh, I'm sorry. Racially.
Yes.
Okay, motivated, or perhaps a misunderstanding between the two individuals.
Right.
Did I get that right?
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't rally, it was racial.
Racial, right.
Okay. Anything about, you mentioned Mr. Jackson or Mr. Sharpton. I gather you didn't agree with what they were saying or doing about the case. Is that accurate? Or?
I don't agree in them rallying all the African Americans together over one case when we have 47 blacks being killed in one city on a constant basis all the time. We don't march about that, but we'll march about an individual case if it seems to be racial. But we will march when it's our own kids being killed by our own kids. That's why I have the problem with that.
So it did not alienate against the state or against Trayvon Martin?
No.
Okay. It was more that,
Yeah.
what they were doing.
Yeah, saber rattling and trying to build up their own agendas.
Okay. Now, did you do any research on your own? I know you've been exposed to Fox News and local and all that. Did you say, oh, let me find out a little bit about this case on my own? You know, let me go to different sites, you know, pro Zimmerman and pro Martin, and make a decision?
No, I didn't do any of that stuff. I was just conversation with people, friends, and watching television. I didn't go that deep into it.
I know we talked about Fox News. Did you think the local news was favoring one side versus the other?
They seem to be a little more on Trayvon. The only news source that was not all pro Trayvon was Fox. All the others I was watching, CNN, MSNBC, they were all more or less on the side of Mr. Martin.
So you just don't go to the, what people may refer to as more conservative. You go to all different areas, I
Right.
guess, in terms of, some people may refer to CNN as liberal. I'm not saying that it is or isn't.
Right.
But, so you were getting a varied views, I guess?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was that on purpose?
Yes.
Okay. And would that have been only to this case, or do you on a regular basis, you know, look at or watch Fox and CNN?
On a regular basis. I'm interested, I'll try to look at both sides and see.
Okay. Do you focus more on Fox News versus CNN?
No, almost the same.
Okay. And on CNN, do you watch any particular program that, and what I'm talking about, it's not just news, I'm talking about commentators. Do you see,
Not much
what is it,
commentators.
AC or Anderson Cooper? Or,
I've seen some Anderson Cooper and mostly the regular news that's on CNN. And what's that blonde-haired lady's name that has that show? I forget her name. That's
on CNN?
Yes. Short.
Or more of a Fox, but anyway.
I've watched her a couple of times, but I forget her name.
All right. Do you always believe what you hear on TV or reading the newspaper?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you always believe that the news gets it right?
Not all the time, no.
Okay. And in terms of the news, the local coverage or the national news, do you recall any commentators specifically, forget about the national commentators like Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, or Anderson Cooper. I'm talking about lawyers talking about the case. Do you recall the names of any lawyers?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you recall any of the lawyers in this case talking about the case in terms of the things you saw on TV or read in the paper?
Just some of the guys over there when they would do their regular, I guess, briefings that they did.
Okay. And you talking about Mr. O'Mara or
Yes,
somebody else on this side? Mm-hmm. Did you watch any of those?
Yes, sir. Some of it, yes.
Okay. Did that, first of all, what do you recall being said by Mr. O'Mara or somebody else on this side over here?
I guess they wouldn't really say much. This was a while ago, so I can't recollect
Was
exactly.
it towards the beginning? Or?
Yes.
Okay. And you don't have any recollection of what they said?
Not much.
Okay. Did you feel that the state also should have been commenting about the case on a daily basis?
Not really. No,
Okay.
no, not really.
All right. Did that sway you in any way in terms of hearing commentary from the defense attorney in the case?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you agree to keep, or while you were listening to it, did you say, well, hold on, there's two sides to every story?
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Did you watch any of the proceedings themselves in terms of what was going on in court? Since you live in the community, did you, either while it was being streamed live or later on in the evening, get the rundown in terms of what had happened in court?
Not really. Just stuff like, I guess the bail. The money issue for attorneys and
Okay.
not getting a bail, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Did you form an opinion as a result of hearing that?
No.
Do you have any doubt in your mind as you sit here today whether your perception or consideration of the actual evidence in the testimony or law might be affected by your prior experience in terms of media exposure?
No, sir.
At all? Nothing? Is that correct?
Mm.
If I could have a moment to... Mentioned, and I apologize, Your Honor, I may have a few more moments. You mentioned having seen the defendant, Mr. Zimmerman, did you see him on TV?
Yes.
Okay, do you recall in what settings you would have seen the defendant, Mr. Zimmerman?
Yeah, I guess when he got arrested, they showed his head, the back of his head, and going into the jail.
Anything else in terms of him appearing on TV? Did you?
No, I guess it was mostly that in the early years, in the early part.
Okay, did you watch anything after that on, on national news or on local news?
Just more or less people talking about it on television, not really showing a whole bunch of Mr. Zimmerman after that, other than the same pictures of him
Okay,
going
would
to
it
court.
have just been pictures or would it?
Video.
Video?
Going into the jail.
Okay, anything else? This is what I'm trying to probe from you at this time as best you can recall.
Right. That was, let me see. I remember him when they walked him into the jailhouse and they showed the pictures of his head. And they would keep showing the picture of his face when they talk about the case.
Okay.
But that was pretty much it.
Okay. Did you form, or let me ask you this way, what impressions did you get from those video pictures? Did you form any impressions? I know you stated you don't have an opinion about the case. I'm saying, what were your impressions? I mean, everybody, I'm assuming, has impressions. Maybe you didn't have any.
When I saw the scars on the back of his head, I didn't know that. I figured he was getting a pretty good beating.
Okay.
And somebody had to defend themselves. It was pretty. I figured it was a pretty rough fight.
Okay.
On both sides, I guess.
Right. Did you see any pictures of Trayvon Martin at all? Do you recall watching?
Just the pictures that they showed. I guess with the hood on, and I guess one when he was a younger boy.
Okay.
That's
all right. What were your impressions in terms of him wearing a hoodie?
no big deal. I wear hoodies too. He must have been cold.
Okay. Anything else that you can recall now about pictures or videos or interviews of anybody in the case that you recall at this time that you would have seen on TV?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. West.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
My name is Don West, one of the attorneys for Mr. Zimmerman. If you care for water or something like that, let
I
us
don't
know.
think I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. We only have the information that was in the questionnaire that you prepared and then what you said here today. So I wanted to follow up with a couple of things that indicate that you're self-employed.
Yes.
What kind of work do you do?
Well, I own some houses and some vending machines. I pretty much handle those, and that's it.
Kind of a passive income?
Pretty much.
So it would not cause you a particular hardship to sit on the jury?
No, sir.
Be able to maintain your businesses and still be able to see this through, whether it's 4 or 6 weeks, what have you?
That's right.
And that would include, should the jury be sequestered?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Do you have children?
I have one son.
How old?
He's 20, going on 21 in September, and he's a student up in Tallahassee.
Does not live at home with you?
No, he doesn't.
You talked about being in discussions with friends and family members regarding this case. Certainly, if people take different sides, it makes for a more lively discussion. Has your wife specifically commented to you about how she feels regarding the case?
She wasn't really sure either in the beginning. She thought he may have done it the way they say it went down as far as him, killing, but she wasn't with the racial connotations either on that.
So at this point, are you and she somewhat aligned
Yes.
in that sense?
Mm-hmm.
When you have the lively discussions with those that aren't, are you talking about siblings or co-workers or...
Some co-workers and sometimes, like last 4th of July, we got together with I have a big barbecue at my house every year. A lot of family members from both sides of the family come and talk about it. I'm always the one in the middle. Always. But it's mostly all, it's mostly family, very few co-workers. Because the only time I really have workers is when I have a Jackson office that I do at the beginning of the year. And I've talked to a few people that work in my office about it, and they talk about that kind of thing, but not a whole lot.
So, for those that you socialize with and are related to at events like this, are you and your wife largely standing alone?
Pretty much.
And that all of those around you have pretty much made up their mind, and there's nothing you can do to talk them out of it?
I might be able to count on one hand the people that hadn't made their mind up yet.
Mm-hmm. You had mentioned some things that happened that caught your attention that you thought were too far, public statements, and you mentioned a woman with a pink hat.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about a congresswoman?
Yes.
Frederica Wilson?
I think that's her name.
The hat's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So that's the person we're talking about probably.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that her comments were sort of inflammatory?
Yeah, I did. I really did. I didn't think it was necessary to say that the young man was hunting down like a rabid dog, and because no one was there but these two guys, and I don't believe he was being hunted.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe watched but not hunted, and just went crazy when they met. But I don't think it was intentionally being hunted down. And there's one more. What was the African American congressman name? I think it was. He goes, Trayvon was guilty of being some letters, MDB, some stuff like that. That's totally inappropriate. It was MDB, walking in the neighborhood while being black. I mean, that kind of stuff to me doesn't even be said. I'm not with that. I didn't like that.
Were you involved in the media watching what was being done instead in between the time of the event and when the decision was made to arrest Mr. Zimmerman?
Yeah, I was watching some of that. I was watching.
During the time of some of the demonstrations and rallies?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, I had some friends, matter of fact, some people who had prepared a taxi. They go, I'm going to go down to the rally. I'm going out to the rally. You coming to the rally? I'm not going to the rally. I said, because of a rally in Chicago for 42 kids that got killed by our own people. Let's go to that rally.
Mm-hmm. Some of your friends, maybe even some of your family, may have attended the rallies?
I don't know if any of them did, but I do know some people that I socialized with as far as preparing their taxi. They would tell me, because we'd start talking, that they went down there to the rally.
Oh, you do tax preparation?
Right.
Okay, so folks that you would come in contact with.
Right. I managed the Jackson Hewitt office at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm. Do you know anyone in your family or extended family or network of friends that signed petitions in support of?
No, sir, not that I know of.
Have you had occasion to listen to comments made in the media by legal representatives of Mr. Martin's family, Trayvon Martin's family?
Yes, their attorney, the guy
Yes.
that had. Yeah, I watched when he was talking about how the right's going to be suing and trying to prosecute Mrs. Zimmerman at the beginning of when it all happened.
Mm-hmm. Have you also heard members of the Martin family themselves speak?
Yes, I heard the father. I saw the father speak and the mother speak on television before. Now, I understand where it comes from, because my son, I feel the same way.
Sure. You can sympathize with anyone who's lost a child, I take it.
Right.
Did you feel that there was some attempt by the spokesperson for the Martin family to increase the racial aspect of this case, if there is one?
I didn't really think that he did as much as our so-called civil rights leaders did.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't see as much from him, though.
Do you feel that if you're a juror in this case and one of the members of the Martin family that might testify, Ms. Fulton or Mr. Martin, would you be able to give their testimony full and fair consideration?
Absolutely.
Is there anything that you attribute to them in the news that would in some way alienate you or affect your ability to consider their evidence?
No.
At the same time, would you consider it with the same scrutiny and perhaps even skepticism as jurors are expected to have as you would anybody else?
Yes, sir.
It sounds like you are, in some ways, sort of used to defending yourself, at least in connection with this case. And in that you can take a position and stick with it,
Yes, sir.
and that you're not easily swayed by the opinions of others.
That's right.
Do you feel you could carry that quality into the jury room?
Yes, sir.
And if I understand what I think I'm hearing you say, and that is that you've heard comments, you've heard bits and pieces of what people claim are evidence, you've heard personal opinions about things all over the board,
Right. That's right.
and that in fact in your own family, in your own extended community, people almost across the board are saying this is racially motivated, that it was George Zimmerman's fault,
Yes.
and that George Zimmerman is guilty.
Yes, sir.
But you're able to separate yourself from that and make up your own mind?
Yes, sir.
And would that decision be made solely on the evidence you hear in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
And because of that, that's how you're able to say, even though you have a flood of information available to you, that you still have no opinion,
That's right.
that you haven't given particular weight to any part of this. Some of it might check out, some of it might not, but if you sit on this jury, you will make your decision based just on what you hear in this courtroom as opposed to all of that other
Yes, sir.
stuff.
That's right.
All right. May I have 1 minute, Judge? Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, and just stay seated for just a moment, sir. When counsel's ready, please approach.